So let's revisit the utter insincerity of this whole situation. Based upon the manipulations to my electronic accounts, which also involve tampering with evidence, in connection with what I have seen as intentional manipulation and defacing of government documents, which constitutes a form of destruction of government property, by the way. We're in a situation where somebody wants to represent that there is going to be a possibility for a variety of options to be executed in connection with potential future stock issues, including one that would potentially be based on changes that are occurring to tariff schedules for the United States within a month of now, or at least by the actual numerical date of the month. On March 28th, there are scheduled to be changes to tariffs involving both the European Union as well as Japan, by virtue of the fact that there's been no effective leadership asserted by those alleging to represent the people of the United States when it comes to matters of international trade and consideration of what would be the causal basis for the implementation of the type of retaliatory tariffs that are pending and in league with what have already been implemented against the United States by multiple countries, up to and including, in this case, the European Union and Japan. Now, the ones with Japan are different insofar as it is a default considering inappropriate trade behavior by those alleging to represent the United States in connection with Japan and policy associated with Japan, up to and especially since this disaster at Fukushima. The United States made very significant changes to its understanding of what was an appropriate relationship with Japan around treaty relations, if nothing else, following the disaster at Fukushima. As a matter of fact, I believe that the United States is currently in violation of many of its own alleged standards in regards to the consideration of the Japanese Constitution, specifically regarding manufacturing of weapons as well as having a standing army since the Fukushima disaster, and that what is being attempted for some form of redress in consideration of the statements that were made and that are now understood to be pending for implementation within the next month as a matter of default are concerned, that these concern that very situation and imposition of a process that was originally instigated under the alleged authority of the United States to set the terms, and then the United States violated its own terms and obligated others that it assumed some authority in regards to determining policy for to facts and matters that violated the terms they had originally set and continued to insist they're authorized to impose. And this is what's going on right now. And in 28 days, 29 days, it goes into a default regarding these retaliatory tariffs that also correlate with a schedule associated with retaliatory tariffs that are supposed to go into effect from the European Union. And I'm going to tell you something right now, European Union. Your retaliatory tariff schedule is incredibly distasteful. And you have to know that in this regard, especially with a lack of forthright disclosure, and especially after what you guys did when Donald Trump tried to chastise NATO for not paying as much as they should, that you had to know that these retaliatory tariffs were distasteful. And I don't appreciate whatever it is you're trying to communicate. Anyway, there was another way to address that. But if you insist on moving forward with them, then the understanding is that somebody at this time has altered the electronic records here to make it appear as if by September of this year, that based upon the implementation of these tariffs, there will again be another 6-month period for some form of stock issue. Now, how long is it going to take for the things that are pending right now to post to certain accounts, especially if you illegally try to place some sort of lien on or try to distribute or obligate something that's dated for yesterday, today, or Monday to be put into effect at a specific period of time before these tariffs take effect? Is this COVID relief? And my understanding is they've been saying for a while, people will get the COVID relief before when? End of March? Before April? Are we supposed to get our last payment for our government stock right before this 6-month period? Because one of the altered records tries to reflect that a very substantial 2-year Treasury note that is coded to maintaining acts of horrendous anti-Semitism comes due 6 months for the implementation of these retaliatory tariffs. And that's exactly what happened last year. That's exactly what happened last year when the United States already knew that China was on course to implement retaliatory tariffs by default if the United States did not take certain actions in order to prevent against their implementation. And the EU has already gone through a period of implementing retaliatory tariffs that were already scheduled concerning specific kinds of electronics that they did at the end of last year, right? So we're in this situation where the audience it has yet to be confirmed. Those who allege to be representing the people of the United States after they've commanded the economy of information by refusing to allow other people to be put into the public sphere in order for us to get the kind of education we need, to take the kind of action we need. And while they're also trying to microchip us as part of an alleged pandemic that doesn't meet anything close to a delivery on more than 20 years of capital outlays associated with preparedness and prevention and or readiness in the face of a pandemic, which can also be exploited in order to accomplish acts of terrorism, or can be used in connection with a natural disaster scenario to further undermine the people and the economy. Nobody has seen fit to take any actual effective leadership on how to deal with this. Now, it wouldn't be appropriate to try to appeal to Europe or to appeal to Japan to give us reprieve, and I know that. But at the same time, by allowing for the acknowledgement of a charlatan government structure facade, and without any actual assertive or effective stepping up by people within this country, we've put ourselves in a very, very dangerous situation. See, what we really need right now is for a intercession in the banking sector and in the financial sector that is allowing for these banks and these investment firms to participate in processes of allowing for the political capital, the economic capital, the actual property of the people of the United States to be forced centralized for redistribution to their stock offerings for their companies. I watched Citigroup do it twice last year. It was completely criminal. I was disappointed that countries that were actually being subjected to acts of biological terrorism besides the United States refused to take any action. They had plenty of opportunity to shut down Citigroup and its international terrorist financing syndicate, and they didn't do it. But neither did the United States. And unfortunately, especially because of the attempt for Citigroup to allege it somehow qualified to administer a Department of Defense transportation program while it strategically uses it to provide insurance coverage for acts of actual terrorism, a refusal to shut that down before today has significantly and severely compromised not only the national security of people, including civilians in the United States, but anything close to credibility for anybody masquerading that they're in public office. Why is there not right now implementation of national security protocols to immediately intercede in, if nothing else, to allow for a emergency receivership, if not seizure of Citigroup operations, so that they are taken out of the realm of speculation while they are trying to use the people of the United States to launder tons of toxic assets for corporations that are not complying with the laws and are not operating in any sort of constitutional manner. It is way past time where corporate America and whatever it was that was supposed to be the allure of allowing them to operate in the private sector without any regulation, especially in connection with this complete farce of a digital currency regarding convertible virtual currencies, including in a permissibility for intentionally non-legal tender digital currencies to be given legitimacy on par with what are supposed to go through a process of legal tender. It's completely beyond the realm of justification. The only appropriate action that can be taken in order to deal with what is already known to be a process that has gotten us to a completely unsustainable point is to do what should have been done in the fall of 2019. You need to arrest the executive board of Citigroup, and you need to take over operations from Citigroup and prepare a process for taking over operations of any financial entity up to and including in the banking sector or in the insurance sector that dispossessed the people through an intent to deceive as part of the 2008 banking bailout and thought that they could overcome the statute of limitations in regards to getting away with this crime. They did not. There are still pending investigations before 10 years. They've done it more than twice. This is unacceptable. They've done it twice in the last year and a half. And that is after intentionally attempting to obstruct a request for a criminal process in the state of Texas that was then referred to the federal level, and after a formal request to members of Congress and the Senate in this time frame, around this time frame 5 years ago. 5 years. 5 years, you haven't converted it. All you've tried to do was sit on it long enough. And you've already tried to milk 2 stock issues out of torturing your own people. Who is getting these shares? Who's getting the dividends from these shares from Citigroup? How many of them are campaign contributors to people moonlighting that they are elected to Congress or the Senate or to the office of the presidency? How many of them are spouses or literal members of the federal government expecting to be able to avail themselves of a federal salary and benefits? How many of them are in local or state governments that are literally getting dividends off of torturing their own people and lying to them? They need to be shut down today. You need to start with them. They need to be closed down by the end of the day today. There's no excuse. There's no excuse. This isn't business.